Good morning, guys. Welcome to Ashok IT. Today, we are here to discuss about Dockers. Please confirm all of you able to see my screen. Is my voice audible? Is my voice audible? Is my screen visible? Is my voice audible? Is my screen visible? Perfect. Thanks for joining. Let's get started with our today's session. So today's agenda, we are going to understand what is the Docker, how to set up the Docker in our system, and how to work with Docker. Good. What we are going to learn as part of this workshop. First, part one, we will understand what is Docker. Life without Docker. If we don't use Docker in our project, then what kind of problems that we are going to face? We will understand that first. Then, if I use Docker in my project, what are the advantages I'm going to get? Life without Docker, life with Docker. That we are going to discuss. Then we are going to set up the Docker software in our system. Docker installation we are going to do. Then we will understand Docker architecture, how this Docker is going to execute, what operations will be performed in the Docker, that we will discuss. Then coming to part two, we will see what is a Docker Hub, how to create an account in the Docker Hub. It is a central repository where we can store our Docker related files. How to create the account in the Docker Hub, what is Docker registry, what are Docker images, how to create a Docker images, how to run the Docker image, then what is Docker container, what is the purpose of Docker container, and we are going to see how to Dockerize Spring Boot application. I'm going to show you Dockerization for Spring Boot as well as Python Flask. So two applications I'm going to Dockerize by using this Docker. One is Spring Boot application. Second one is Python Flask application. So that you will understand how to work with Docker irrespective of the technology. One is a Java based application which will use a Spring Boot. Another one is Python Flask application. All right. Can you see the agenda? What you are going to learn what you are going to learn from this workshop in next 2 hours of time. What is Docker? Life without Docker, life with Docker, Docker setup, Docker architecture, Docker Hub, Docker registry, Docker images, Docker containers, and Dockerizing Spring Boot application. Are you clear with this? All of you? Able to my screen now? You are able to see my screen, right? Confirm. Yes, perfect. Let's get started. Guys, now in this class today, so many students joined. Those people are from different backgrounds. Some people are from UI full stack developers. Some people are from Java full stack development. Some people are Java backend developers. Some people are DevOps engineers. Some people are Python developers. So different technology specific people joined in this workshop because Docker is not only specific to Java, not only specific to Python, not only specific to UI. Docker is a universal platform. Multiple projects which are developed by using multiple technologies also can use Docker to simplify their life. Okay, so today in our session, not only Java developers, there are other technology specific developers are available, and the DevOps administrators also available, cloud experts also available in our session. Okay, let's get started. Suppose if we want to develop one application, then can you develop that application by using only Java? Can I develop that application by using only Java, guys? Can we do the application development by using only Java? Along with Java, we need to use some other technologies also. Only Java is not sufficient to develop the application. Java, by using Java, you can develop backend part. Then what about front end? You cannot develop the front end. You cannot develop the front end by using Java. Java is a purely backend technology. By using Java, you can develop backend of the application. So if you take Java for backend, for front end, you will take HTML, CSS, Angular, or React. Only Java and UI sufficient to develop the application, or they are not sufficient to develop the application? By using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Java, can you complete entire project, end-to-end project? Can you develop? Can you develop end-to-end project? No, we cannot develop that, because by using HTML and CSS, we can do front-end development. We can do front-end development. By using Java, we can do back-end development. Then what about database? Then what about database? We need a database for our application, and we need a server for our application. We need some tools like a Git repository tool to store the source code. We need a tool like Jenkins to deploy our application. Okay, so when you go for application development, only one technology not sufficient. We are going to use several technologies in order to develop our application. We are going to use several technologies in order to develop our application. Now, HTML content and templates we are going to use, and CSS style sheets we are going to use to beautify our application. Client-side JavaScript, including frameworks such as Angular or React, we are going to use. So if you see HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Angular, or React, these things we are going to use to develop front-end part of the application. What is a front-end? If you see Ashok IT website, there is a logo, there is a menu. When you mouse over on the menu, sub-menus are coming. Here, upcoming courses images are coming, buttons are available, and trending courses are available, buttons are available. So here, some cards are displaying, the features of the Ashok IT displaying, testimonials are displaying. So whenever you scroll the page, the content is keep on loading. Whatever you are able to see on the front end, whatever you are able to see on the website of Ashok IT, that is called front end of this application. How to develop the front end of the application? To develop front end of the application, we will go for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Some frameworks are available like Angular and React. So by using these technologies or by using these frameworks, we are going to develop front end part. We are going to develop front end part. Now we need build tools like a Maven or Gradle. I need to package my application and I need to create a war file or I need to create a jar file for my application. Then we need a build tool like a Maven or Gradle. After that, we need a server. I need to run my application. This is a web application. Everybody able to access this URL. Can you guys access this URL which I have sent in the chat box? Which I have sent in the chat box. Can you guys access this URL? Can you guys access this URL which I have sent in the chat box? Are you able to access that URL or not? You just click on it. You are able to access that URL. That means that is a web application. Everybody able to access that URL. Everybody able to access that URL because that is a web application which is running inside a server. So for my application development, I need one server. The most famous server that we will use, Apache Tomcat. Apache Tomcat is the server that we are going to use to run our application. Okay, now front-end technologies are required, build tools are required, servers are required, and runtime frameworks, backend part. Now, if you see here in this Ashok IT website, here there is an option called View Details. When you click on this button, the course details are displaying. When you click on this button, one pop-up is coming. When you enter the details, when you click on register, the data will be registered in the website. That means some code is executing in the background. That is called backend part of the application. So to develop backend of the application, we will use Node.js, or we can use PHP, or we can use Python, or we can use Ruby, .NET, Java. Like that, there are several backend technologies are available. Java is a backend technology. By using Java, you can develop backend of the application. That means when user clicks some button in the application, what should happen? When you click on login, what should happen? When you click on register, what should happen? Everything will be implemented in the backend. In order to implement the backend, we are using some backend technologies. What are the backend technologies are available? Java, Python, .NET, Node.js, PHP. Like this, there are several backend technologies are available. Along with this, we need a database for our application. Users are registering. We need to store the users data. Now you see some images are scrolling, some courses are displaying, course content is available, images are there. Everything is available in the database of my application. So for our application development, front-end technologies are required, tools are required, server is required, back-end technologies are required, and a database is also required. Along with that, some additional services also required for our application. I want to use cache in my project. Then I will go for Redis server. I want to use the message queue in my application. Then I will go for Apache Kafka. Then I want to use Git or GitHub. GitHub I want to use to manage source code of my application. So here, tell me, by using one technology, can you complete the project development? Can you develop one project development by using one technology? No, because our application contains several components. Database components will be available to communicate with the database. We need a database for that, like Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB, SQL Server, MariaDB, DynamoDB. Like that, there are several databases are available in the market. According to our requirement, we will choose one database for our application. For example, let's take, I will go with the MySQL database, which is free of cost. And I want to develop my application with Java as a backend technology. I will use Java as a backend technology for my application. And I want to deploy my application into server. I will use Apache Tomcat. I will deploy my application into Apache Tomcat. I want to package my application by using Maven tool. And I want to use the Angular to develop a front end of my application. I want to use CSS to beautify my application. You see, the buttons are displaying in the red color. One button is displaying in the blue color. One button is displaying in the red color. Why? We have implemented styles for that. We have implemented styles for the buttons. Those styles we have implemented by using CSS. Here, menu is displaying. This is a HTML tag, ordered list, unordered list, HTML tags. Menu is displaying, logo is displaying, banner is displaying, images are scrolling. So this Ashok IT website is developed by using several technologies. It's not using only one technology. Front end is available, back end is available, database available, server is available, source code repository is also available. So this is called as application development stack. What is this, guys? This is called as application development stack. So do you understand what is the meaning of application development stack? Application development stack will represent what are the technologies, what are the tools that we are using to develop our application. That is called as application development stack. Please confirm, are you clear with this one? Are you clear with this one? Perfect. Now, let's take an example. We are working for one project. Now, this project is developing by several developers, guys. There are several developers available in order to develop this project. Multiple developers are working in this project. Perfect. Now, we have decided technology stack for this project. For front end, we need to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript we are using for front end. For backend, we are using Java 1.8 version. For backend, we are using Java 1.8 version. Database we are using MySQL 5.6 version. MySQL 5.6 version. For deploying my application, I am using Tomcat 9.0 version. Tomcat I am using 9.0 version. Kafka I am using 3.1 version. Kafka I am using 3.1 version. So this is development stack of our application. So now all these developers are going to set up this development stack. That means in order to do the development, they need to install all these things. Java should be installed, MySQL should be installed, Tomcat should be installed, Kafka should be installed. But for HTML, CSS, JavaScript installation not required. They are just we can directly develop them. But what about the remaining things here? Java should be installed in my machine. MySQL should be installed in my machine. Tomcat should be installed in my machine. Kafka should be installed in my machine. Then only as a developer, I can develop the project. I can develop the project. I am the only one developer in the project, or there are other developers also available in the project. I am the only one developer, or other developers also available. Other developers also available. Every developer has done this setup. Every developer has done this setup. They developed the code. They have integrated the code in the Git repository. Development completed. Assume that development of my application got completed. When the development of my application got completed, can I give the code to client directly and ask the client to use it? My project development is completed. Can I give this code? I will keep this code in the Git repository. Now let me show you. Here I have GitHub. I have a GitHub account. I have so many projects in my GitHub. I have so many projects in my GitHub. So here there is a application available. REST API is available. Rules API is available. Can I give this code to client? Can I ask the client to run this application? Can I ask the client to run this application? No, client don't know what is GitHub. Client don't know how to run this application. First of all, we should not give the project to client directly. What we need to do? We need to give this project to the testing team. We need to give the project to the testing team. Testing team should perform testing of our application. Once the testing is passed, then we can give the project to client. Okay. Now, if I give this project to the testers, testers also should maintain this environment, or testers should not maintain this environment. So in order to run my code in their system, they also should have Java installed. They also should have MySQL installed. They should have Tomcat installed. They should have Kafka installed. Then only my code will work. Then only my code will work. So this is the development stack, application dev stack, which is available in every developer computer. If this code should be run, if you want to run this code in your system also should have the softwares or not. Your system also should have the softwares or not. Come on. Without having these softwares, can you run the application, or you cannot run that application? Without having these softwares, can you run the application, or you cannot run the application? You cannot run this application. That is the problem. That is the problem. Setting up the environment for application development or execution is very difficult task. Setting up the environment for application development or execution is very difficult task, because they need to set up all the softwares. Which versions these people are using, same version softwares they have to set up. Now let's assume that 3 developers are there. They are working from last 1 year. They are working from last 1 year in project. So those people know what softwares are required and how to set up which version of the softwares are required. Now assume that another developer joined in the same project. Now 3 people are working from the last 1 year. They have done the setup of the project. They have installed the softwares. They are able to develop the application. They are able to run the application. Now new developer joined in the team. New developer joined in team. Now tell me, can he directly start the development of the project, or he need to set up the softwares which are required to develop the application and run the application? Does this new developer start the development directly? Does this new developer start the development directly? Now, here he is having Mac OS. This developer having Mac OS, Java 11 available, MySQL MySQL 6.1 is available in this developer machine. Tomcat 8.5 available. Kafka not available. So this developer also having a computer, but in this computer of this developer, there are different softwares are available, different operating system available, different version of the Java is available. But for this project, Java 1.8 required, but this person is having Java 11. We need MySQL 5.6 version, but this developer having higher version of the MySQL. We need Tomcat 9, he's having Tomcat 8. We need Kafka, he don't have Kafka. So what is the problem here? Can you guys understand any problem here when the new person joined in the project? Can you guys see any problem here when a new developer joined? These developers are using Windows operating system. This developer is using Mac OS, Mac operating system. Our existing developers are using Windows. This developer is using Mac operating system. Our developers are using Java 1.8. In this computer, this developer computer having Java 11 version. Existing developers are using MySQL 5.6. This person is having MySQL 6.1. Here Tomcat 9 is using by the developers. Here Tomcat 8.5 available. We are using Kafka, but here Kafka not available. Now, this is very common problem that we are going to face in the project development. So different people will join. They will have laptops. In their laptops, different softwares will be available. Those softwares will be having with different versions. Okay, here whenever you have this kind of setup, then what will happen? Now see here, what are the front end components available in for the application may not work in the other system. Whatever the backend components are available may not work in the other system. Whatever the database available may not support in the other system. What are the libraries or dependencies are available may not work in the other computer. So can you guarantee all the components or the softwares of our application will support in every laptop, in every system? I have a front end, I have a back end, I have a database, I have some dependencies. Do you think that all these components of our application will be supported for every system, a laptop, a desktop, a server, a mobile, like that? Different types of computers we are using, different types of machines we are using. In this laptop, these softwares may support, but a database may not support. In this software, libraries may not support. In this desktop, database is supporting, but front end is not supporting in this desktop. So there is a guarantee, or there is no guarantee that all the development stack of the application will supported by every computer. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee. So here configuration is a big problem for the project, or configuration is not a problem for the project development. Configuration is one of the challenging thing in the project development. Configuration is one of the challenging thing in the development. Are you able to follow this? Because as we discussed, our application is not developing by using one technology, by not developing by using one framework. Our application development will happen with multiple technologies, with the multiple frameworks, with the multiple tools, front-end components, back-end components, database components, and some tools like GitHub, Maven, like the tools also will be used in our project. One person is using Windows operating system, someone is using Linux operating system, somebody is using Mac operating system. Do you think that all these softwares will supported in all the operating systems? Do you think that all these softwares will support in all the operating systems? No, no. Now, when the new developer joined in the project, whenever a new developer joined in the project, can he run the project directly with the Mac operating system? No, because these projects are developed based on the Windows operating system. He is using Mac. There may be some problem. Here we are using Java 1.8, but this person is having Java 11. There may be a chance of getting some issues. Here we are running the project with the Tomcat 9. He is running the project with the Tomcat 8. There is a problem. There is a problem. Here Kafka is available, but here Kafka is not available. So whenever we go to the project, what will happen is within the team only, people will say that, well, it worked on my system. Whatever the project code is available, that is working in her computer, but the same project is not working in this boy computer. The reason, you use a Mac, they are using Windows. You developed an app by using 1.8, but they have Java 11. You used MongoDB version 3.6, but they are using version 4.2. So this, the configuration of the systems, the softwares available in the systems, the versions of the softwares are completely different in the computers. That's why our project is not working in one person system, which is working in the other person system. You see here, I have taken a girl and boy. In the girl's computer, the project is working as expected because she has done that configuration. But in the boy's computer, the same project is not working because the configuration is different from boy's computer and girl's computer. So this is a problem in the project or not. There are some software compatibility issues. The operating system is different. The version of the Java is different. The version of the database is different. So these are the common problems that we are going to face in the project development. Now, DevOps people, you need to deploy the application. You are responsible to deploy the application to multiple environments like dev environment, production environment, UAT environment, pilot environment, QA environment. Whenever you are deploying the application to environments, you need to make sure the infrastructure is available to run the application or not. DevOps people, you are responsible for deployment, right? So how can you deploy the application to production system? You need to set up the infrastructure for the production system or not. So you need to install the Java, you need to install the database, you need to install the server. Everything you have to set up manually in the production system. So developers are writing the code. Developer will keep the code in the GitHub. Then how you will deploy that code into production? In order to run this application, all the softwares, all the libraries which are required, you need to set up in the production system. So setting up the environment is very difficult task. Okay. Now you see, there are two members available in the project. One girl is there, one boy is there. In the girl's system, the project is working, but in the boy system, the project is not working. What is the reason, guys? The code which is working in one system, why the code is not working in the other system? Same code, same project, same code, working in one developer system, not working in other developer system. Configuration is the problem. Softwares are the problem. Infrastructure is the problem. Environment issues are there. One person is using Windows operating system, one person is using Linux operating system or Mac operating system. One developer using Java 1.8 version, other developer using Java 11 version. One developer using MongoDB 3.6 version, other developer using MongoDB 4.2 version. There are some configuration difference is there. There is a difference in the configuration in the two systems. That's the reason the code which is working in one computer is not working in the other computer. Not working in the other computer. Are you able to follow this? In order to resolve this problem, we are going to use Docker. Are you guys able to understand why we are going to use the Docker? If you use the Docker, then you can resolve these kind of problems. Docker will help you to deploy your application very easily in any computer. If you use the Docker, You no need to bother about which operating system we are using, which softwares we are using, what is the infrastructure of the computer. You no need to bother about the infrastructure of the computer in order to run the application when you use the Docker. Docker is going to take care of all the configurations, all the softwares, all the infrastructure which is required to run your application. If you don't use the Docker, then what is the problem? If you don't use the Docker, then what is the problem? As a developer or as a DevOps engineer, you need to set up the infrastructure in order to run the application. Are you able to understand? Are you able to understand? If you don't use Docker, then what is the problem? The application which is running in one computer may not run in the other computer. Dependencies will be available. Maven dependencies will be available. Not only dependencies, think about Java version, think about the database, think about the database version, think about the components that are required. Versions. Java I am using. In one computer, Java 1.8 is there. In other computer, Java 1.6 is there. Can you run the project in the both computers now? No, there is a change in the version. So if you don't use the Docker, normally what I need to do, every developer has to set up the infrastructure in their computer to run the application. Now see here, these 3 developers are working in the project from 1 year. They have done this setup and they are working on the project development. New developer joined in the company. Whenever a new developer joined in the company, he will get a laptop from the office. Can he directly start the development? Can he directly run the project? Can he directly run the project? No. For example, we have developers, we have done the coding, project is ready. Now I have given this code directly to the client. Can client run the project? No. Suppose I have completed my project development. I have completed my project development. I want to deliver the project to the client. So client is having one computer. We need to deploy our application in the client system. Do you think that client system will have all these softwares? Do you think that a client system will have all these softwares? These softwares we implement, we have downloaded and we have set up the configurations. We have done the infrastructure setup in our system. We have done the development. Now development completed. Now we need to deploy the project to the client. Client told that this is my computer. You please deploy the application in my computer so that I can use this application. This is the client system. This is client system, client machine. Client machine. Can you expect client will have Java 1.8 version installed? Do you think that client will install Java 1.8? Do you think that client will install the database? Client will install Tomcat? Client will install Kafka? Client don't know anything about softwares. That is the reason he has given the project to you to develop. He has given the money to develop the project. Now it is your responsibility to develop the code. Now you have done this coding. You have tested because you are a developer. You know what is Java, what is MySQL, what is Tomcat, what is Kafka. As a developer, you know these things. You know that these softwares are required to develop. You have downloaded these softwares. You have set up the infrastructure. You have infrastructure set up in your system in order to develop and run the application. But what about the client? Client don't know anything. Client don't know what is Java. If client knows Java, he can develop the project on his own. He don't give the project to you to develop. He has given the project to you to develop because he don't know how to develop it. Now you are responsible to develop the project and you are responsible to deploy the project into client system. Here DevOps people will be available. Here developers are going to write the code and DevOps people will comes into picture in order to deploy the code. DevOps people are going to take the code from the GitHub. DevOps people are going to take the code, whatever the code that is available in the GitHub, those people will take the code and those people need to deploy the code into client machine. It can be called as a server, client machine or client servers, which will be available in the client location. Now, whatever the infrastructure we have in the developer system, same infrastructure will be available in the client system or same infrastructure may not be available in the client system. Whatever the infrastructure available in the my machine, same infrastructure will not be available in the client machine. Same infrastructure will not be available in the client machine. Are you able to follow this? Are you able to follow this? Good. Now, in order to develop this application, in order to run this application in the client machine, we need to set up the infrastructure. Setting up the infrastructure is easy, or setting up the infrastructure is difficult? Setting up the infrastructure is easy. Setting up the infrastructure is difficult. Setting up the infrastructure is difficult because manually you need to download all the softwares. Manually you need to install all the softwares. You need to make sure which version of the Java we are using in our computer, same version should be installed in the client machine also. Same version should be installed in the client machine also. Right? Which version of the Java is available in our machine, same version should be installed in the client machine. What are the softwares available in our machine? The same software should be installed in the client machine also. Guys, are you able to follow this? Whenever you are a new joinee in the project, you should set up all these things in your system. Already the project development started. People are working on the development. You newly joined in the project. Then what you need to do to develop the project or to run the project? You need to set up all these softwares. Okay. You are a developer. You can do the setup by spending 1 or 2 days of time or 1 week of time you can take to set up. But what about client? Client can do that setup. I will give 1 month of time for client. Can I ask the client to set up the softwares? By giving 1 month of time, can we ask the client to learn the Java and install the Java, learn the database, install the database, then you can run the application? He will beat you left and right. Are idiot? I have given you crores of rupees. I don't know anything about the softwares. That is the reason I have paid you 1 crore to develop the project and to deploy the project. Why should I learn the Java? That is what clients are going to tell. So can you ask the client to learn the Java and install the Java? Can you ask the client to learn the MySQL and install the database in the client system? Never, never. It's not possible. Got it? So here, what we need to do, we need to set up the infrastructure. Now, client told we have spent 1 week of time. We have done all the software set up in the client machine. We have deployed. Okay, working fine. Tomorrow, client told that, man, in one system you have deployed, can you deploy the project in the another system also? Client is having 2 computers now. Client machine 1, this is my computer, this is my wife computer, please deploy the project in my wife computer also. Then again what you need to do? You need to do the setup again in the another computer or not? Same process you need to do or not? By mistake, instead of Java 8, you have installed Java 11. Then what will happen? Manually you are doing, right? Whenever you are doing anything manually, as a human being, we may do some mistakes. Instead of Java 1.8, by mistake we have installed Java 11. Then project will work or project will not work? Project will not work because our project is developed by using Java 1.8. But the version which is available in the client system not matching with the 1.8. So some compatibility issues will come. The project will not work. The project will not work properly. In the companies, it is the responsibility of the DevOps engineer to set up the environment to run the application. Who is the DevOps engineer? DevOps engineer, nothing but once the coding is completed, once the development is completed, this DevOps engineer is responsible to set up the environments for the clients and deploy our application into the client systems. In order to deploy the application into the client system, the softwares, the infrastructure should be ready in the client system. So setting up the infrastructure manually is a very difficult task and it is error prone. There is a chance of getting the errors when you are setting up the environments. When you are setting up the environments, there is a chance of getting errors. When you're setting up the environment, there is a chance of doing the mistakes. N number of problems are available. N number of problems are available. Are you guys able to understand the problem? Are you guys able to understand the problem? Always I will explain the problem first, then I will go for the solution. First, what is the problem? Setting up the infrastructure to develop or to run the application is very difficult task in the industry. For a developer or for a tester or for a DevOps engineer or for a client, setting up the environment to develop the application, setting up the environment to run the application is difficult. Why? Because our application is not developing by one technology. Our application is developed with several components. Front-end components will be available, back-end components will be available, database components will be available, dependencies will be available, libraries will be available. If all those things are supported by your system, then only you can run that application in the system. You need to set up all those things in your system, then only you can develop the application, or then only you can run the application. That is the reason in the first slide I have explained application development stack. Application development stack means what? A project will contain several technologies. Front end part, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Angular or React. Build tools, Maven or Gradle. Server, Apache Tomcat. Backend, Java or Python or .NET. Database, MySQL or MariaDB SQL Server. Messaging queues and caching concepts are available. So our application is developed by using all these components. So in order to develop the application or in order to run the application, all these things should be available in my computer. Okay, I am a developer. I am having 8 years experience. I'm working in the industry from last 8 years. If you give me 2 to 3 days of time, I will set up this environment in my system because I have experience. I am a programmer. I am working on these things from last 8 years. I can do the setup if you give me 2 days of time. But what about a tester? Can tester do all this setup? What about DevOps people? Can they do all this setup? Okay, tester also can do, assume that. DevOps engineer also can do, assume that. What about client? Can client do this setup? Client cannot do this setup. Suppose if you want to do this setup manually, it is going to take time or not? If you want to do this setup manually, lot of time we need to spend, and you need to have, you should be a expertise in this infrastructure setup, then only you can do, because 10 different softwares I am using in my project, 10 different libraries I am using, 10 different technologies I am using in my project. So setting up the environment, setting up the computer to run your project is very difficult, guys. That is a real problem that we are facing in the industry. Setting up the infrastructure. Simple example. Now I will give my Java application for you. So I have a GitHub account, guys. Now I will give my Java application HTTP basic authentication app. If I give this application code to you, can you directly run in your computer without having operating system, without having Java, without having Maven? Can you run this application? You cannot. You need to set up the infrastructure. You need to set up the infrastructure. So now tell me, setting up the infrastructure to run our application is easy or it is a complex process? It is a complex process. Why? Because whatever the code, which is running in my computer, I should be able to run the code in other computer also very easily. I don't need to spend much time. Now I have developed a project by using all these softwares, guys. By using all these softwares, I have developed one application. By using all these softwares, I have developed one application in my computer. So I am a developer. I have the setup of all these softwares. My application development completed. I have a WAR file. I have developed one application. I have developed one application with below tech stack. With below tech stack, technology stack. Front end with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Angular. Okay. Backend I have developed by using. I have developed application with below tech stack. Front end with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Angular. Okay. Front end. Backend I have developed by using Java. Backend with Java 1.8 version. DB, MySQL DB, MySQL DB 5.6 version, MySQL DB 5.6 version, Maven build tool, Maven build tool, Kafka 3.6 version or Kafka 3.3 version, Kafka 3.3 version, Redis 2.1 version, Redis server 2.1 version, Apache Tomcat 8.5, Apache Tomcat 8.5, Apache Tomcat 8.5 version. Okay, this is my technology stack of the project. This is the technology stack of my project. Now, my project is developed by using this. Finally, my project is packaged in the form of WAR file. Java application it is. This Java application is created as a WAR file. By using Maven, I have created a WAR file. WAR file. Now, I'm able to run this application in my system. If I give this WAR file to my wife, can she run this WAR file? She is not from software industry background. She don't know what is software, what is Java, what is database, nothing. Nothing. Can she run this application now? She cannot. I have given this application to client. Can client run this application? Client cannot run it. Now, actually, project development completed. We need to deliver the project to the client. Now tell me, who is responsible to deliver the project to the client? Who is responsible to deliver the project to the client? Developers will deliver or DevOps people will deliver? Developers will deliver this or DevOps people will deliver? DevOps people will deliver. Now, client told that my project should run in 5 computers. These are my 5 computers available in my office. Whatever the project you have developed, this project should be running in 5 computers. Machine 1, machine 1, machine 2, machine 1, machine 2. I have multiple computers here. I have multiple computers here. You should run my application in these computers. I have given you 1 crore rupees to develop the project, and you should deploy the application to my machines. I have 5 computers. This machine is using Windows. This machine is using Linux. This machine is using Unix. This machine is using Mac OS. Mac OS. This machine is using Solar OS. Like this. Client having different machines. Now you need to deploy the application. Whatever the WAR file is available, you need to deploy the application into these machines. Okay, can I run the WAR file directly in the machines? I need to set up the infrastructure. What you need to do? Install Java 1.8, MySQL 5.6, Java 1.8 version you have to install, MySQL 5.6 version you need to install, Tomcat 9 version you have to install, Kafka and Redis also should be installed. Kafka and Redis also should be installed. This is set up the infrastructure. Okay, 1 computer. Okay, now same infrastructure you need to set up in this computer. Same infrastructure you need to set up in this computer. Same infrastructure you need to set up in this computer. Same infrastructure you need to set up in this computer in order to run the application. Because client's requirement is that whatever the client tells, we have to do that because client is paying money. Client is paying money. We have to do that. Now tell me, is there any problem if you go with this approach? Is there any problem if you go with this approach? If you see any problem with this approach, manually we need to set up, and it is very complex to set up, and it is a time taking process. There is a chance of doing the mistakes. There is a chance of doing the mistakes. You need to set up the infrastructure. Whatever the softwares that you are having, the softwares you need to set up which are compatible with Windows operating system. Here you need to set up the softwares which are compatible with the Linux operating system. You need to set up the softwares which are compatible with the Unix, which are compatible with the Mac, which are compatible with the Solar, because every computer having a different operating system. As per the operating system, you need to set up the softwares. The versions which we are using are compatible with Windows, but may not compatible with Linux, may not compatible with the Mac, may not compatible with Solar. So can you see any problems here? Can you see any problems here? Today client gave 5 machines. Tomorrow client told deploy the project in 100 machines. Then can you do the setup for 100 computers, infrastructure setup? You need minimum 2 months of time. Minimum to minimum, you need to take 2 months of time to set up all the infrastructure which is required to run our application. Are you guys able to understand the problem now? Are you guys able to understand the problem now? Yes, there is a problem. So what is the problem? Setting up the infrastructure to run the application is the problem. What is the problem that every developer facing and every DevOps engineer facing in the industry? Environment setup for the computer to run our application is the problem. Why? Because our application not developed by using one technology. Our application development stack having multiple technologies, multiple frameworks, multiple components are available. Are you guys able to follow this? Then what people has done in the industry, in order to simplify this environment setup. So setting up the environment in every computer, setting up the environment in every computer is challenging thing and error prone. Setting up the environment in every computer is a challenging task and error prone. What is the meaning of error prone? Chance of doing mistakes. There is a chance of doing mistakes. People may do the mistake. By mistake, you may install different version of Java. By mistake, you downloaded different version of Kafka. By mistake, you have downloaded different version of Redis cache. Okay. Setting up the environment in every computer is challenging task and it is error prone. To avoid these problems, to avoid this problem, people came up with virtualization concept. What is the concept, guys? To avoid this problem, people came up with virtualization concept. What is virtualization? Now here we have one computer, guys. We have one computer. In this computer we are having operating system. In our computer we are having operating system. For example, I am having Windows operating system. I'm having Windows operating system. In the Windows operating system, there will be one software called hypervisor. There will be one software which is called as hypervisor. Now, by using this hypervisor, what I will do is I will install multiple operating systems in the same computer. I will install multiple operating systems in the same computer. Now, here I will use Linux OS. Linux operating system I will use by using hypervisor. Here I will use Unix operating system by using hypervisor. In the same machine, I'm using this. Unix OS is there. Mac OS is available. Mac OS, and here I will use Solar OS. Different operating systems I'm going to install in the same machine. This is called as virtualization, because I don't want to set up the things in multiple computers. Because every computer having a different operating system. For every computer, I need to do the different setup. It is a time-taking process, and I need so many computers like this. It is costly. Okay, to avoid that problem, what people will do is people will go for a concept called virtualization. Whatever the application, application libraries, application dependents, application dependents, DB components, backend components, tools, etc., which are required for my application to run in the Linux operating system, I will install here. For Unix, I will install here. For Mac, I will install here. For Solar, I will install here. So this is called as virtualization concept, which is used in the industry to simplify application deployment process. Are you guys able to follow this? What is a virtualization? Why virtualization came into the market? I want to run my project in multiple operating systems. To run my project in multiple operating systems, I don't want to purchase multiple computers. Let us do one thing. Within one operating system, let's install hypervisor software, Hyper-V software, and do virtualization. That means I will create Linux machine, I will create Unix machine, I will create Mac, I will create Solar. Within the Windows computer, I will install the Linux also by using hypervisor support, which is called as virtualization concept. But if you go for virtualization, there are some problems available. If you go for virtualization, there are some problems available. Now see here, I'm going to take Windows operating system, which is my main operating system. Host OS. Host OS nothing but in my computer currently, which operating system available, guys? Windows operating system is available, which is called as a host OS. In the Windows operating system, there will be one software called Hyper-V Manager. Hyper-V Manager, which is called as a hypervisor, that will be available by default in every Windows operating system. Why that Hyper-V? By using that Hyper-V, you can install other operating systems also in your machine. Guest OS 1, Guest OS 2, Guest OS 3, I can run my application as a guest OS in the computer. Within one computer, I am running my applications by using 3 different operating systems. How I am able to use 3 different operating systems in one machine, in one computer? By using virtualization. But there are some advantages available as well as disadvantages are available. Multiple operating systems in the same machine. No need to compute, no need to purchase multiple computers. You don't need to purchase multiple computers. Within one computer, you can install multiple operating systems. Easy maintenance, lower total cost of ownership. Because am I purchasing 3 computers to run my application in the 3 operating systems? Or I am taking only one computer to run my application in the 3 operating systems? I am running my application in the 3 operating systems by purchasing only one computer. Lower cost is less. Multiple operating systems I'm running in the same machine. But go for disadvantages. If you have multiple operating systems in one computer, performance will be slow. It will take more time to start the applications also. Boot up process will take longer time. Hypervisors are not as efficient as the host OS. Multiple VMs lead to unstable performance. Simple examples are, you are learning Java. Now, morning you will attend Java, afternoon you will attend Python, evening you will attend .NET classes. If you learn the 3 programming languages at a time, what will happen? Will you be confused or not? Will you be confused or not? Similarly, within one computer, if you install 3 operating systems, computer performance will be fast or computer performance will be slow? Definitely computer performance is going to be slow, unstable performance, and boot up process also going to be very slow. So now tell me, to simplify infrastructure setup in multiple computers, one of the solution is the virtualization. But this virtualization is recommended or not recommended? Virtualization is recommended or not recommended? Not recommended. Why? Within one operating system, we are installing other operating system, which is going to decrease performance of the system, right. Now let's try to recall, guys. Still I have not entered into the Docker. I'm giving you the information why to go for Docker, how the life will be without Docker. I'm telling you that. Once you understand the problem clearly, Then I will tell you the solution with the Docker. I'm preparing the background for you to understand the Docker. Are you feeling bored with this much theory? Are you feeling bored? Interesting? थोड़ा बोर लग रहा है क्या? You have to understand this because Docker I can complete within half an hour, sir. But first of all, you should know why we are going for Docker. You need to have that background. Without having that background knowledge, you can't understand. Okay? Chalo. Right. So now what is the conclusion here? As of now, what we have discussed, what is the conclusion? What is the conclusion? Application development. Application will have multiple softwares. Application will have multiple softwares. Application will use multiple softwares, technologies, tools. Right? In order to develop one end-to-end application, multiple softwares, technologies, tools, libraries. Yes, libraries. In order to develop or run the application, we have to set up infrastructure. Setting up the infrastructure, setting up infrastructure is challenging task and error prone. To simplify infrastructure setup, we use it to follow virtualization concept. We use it to follow what concept, guys? Virtualization concept. Virtualization, with the help of virtualization, with virtualization support, we can install guest OS in host OS. That means installing one operating system, installing Linux in Windows, installing Linux OS in Windows OS using Hyper-V. Installing Linux OS in Windows OS using Hyper-V. If we use virtualization, system will give unstable performance. With VM concept, our machine will be unstable. Machines will become unstable. Performance of the machine will be slow with the VMs. Performance of the machine will become slow if we use VM concept. To avoid the problems of VM, to avoid problems of VM, to avoid problems of virtualization, to avoid problems of virtualization concept, containerization concept came into picture. What is this, guys? So this is what we have discussed so far. In order to develop or run the application, we have to set up infrastructure. Setting up the infrastructure is challenging task and error prone. To simplify infrastructure, we use it to follow virtualization concept. With virtualization support, we can install guest operating system in a host operating system. That means in my computer, I'm having Windows. In the Windows operating system, I'm installing Linux operating system. With virtualization concept, our machine will become unstable. Performance of the machine will become slow if we use VM concept. To avoid problems of virtualization concept, containerization concept came into picture. Okay, let us see what is containerization now. Guys, do you understand the problems of virtualization? Guys, do you understand the problems of virtualization now? If you install one operating system in the another operating system, if you install one operating system in another operating system, the application performance will become very slow. The application performance will become very slow. You got my point? Huh. So there is a problem. In order to avoid this problem, the next concept is containerization. Guys, get ready. Docker is getting started now. The background preparation completed. So this is the conclusion of our last 1 hour discussion. This is the conclusion of our last 1 hour discussion. Right? Now Docker is getting started. Docker is getting started. Right. So do you understand the problem? Do you understand the problem now? Yeah. So what is the problem? Infrastructure setup is the problem for the project. Okay. To overcome that problem, we use it to follow virtualization concept, but it is not 100% recommended. Virtualization concept is not 100% recommended because there are some challenges available. There are some challenges available. To overcome the challenges of the virtualization, containerization came into market. What is the containerization? Now, I want to run 3 applications with 3 different operating systems. I want to run 3 applications with 3 different operating systems. Do I need to install 3 operating systems? No, we are going to create 3 containers. We are going to create 3 containers. What is a container? Container nothing but it is a package which will contain everything which is required to run your application. Container nothing but it is a box. Container nothing but it is a box. In that box, we are going to keep everything which is required to run our application. For my application, Linux operating system required. For my application, Java required. For my application, MySQL required. For my application, Kafka required. For my application, Redis required. Everything we are going to package, whatever the configuration, what are the softwares, what are the libraries, what is the operating system, whatever is required for your application, we are going to package everything as one container. That container we are going to run inside the operating system. Earlier what we have done, in order to run one application, I have installed one operating system. Suppose I want to run my application in the 3 operating systems. So I have installed those 3 operating systems by using VM. If I install 3 operating systems in one machine, 3 guest OS, one main OS, total 4 operating systems will run in the computer. Then my computer will fail. My computer will become very slow. So to avoid the problem of the virtualization, what we have done, we are going to use a concept called containerization technique. Sir, what is a container? Container is nothing but one packet. It is one package which will contain everything, softwares, operating system, libraries, dependencies, whatever is required for your application, everything we are going to keep in one container and we are going to run that container in our operating system. Now, sir, application one, application one is available. I want to run this application in the Linux machine, which is Java. Linux, I mean, another application, which is Python application, I want to run in my machine. Another application is related to Mac operating system, which is developed by using Node.js. I want to run this. Can I run 3 different applications with 3 different operating systems within one operating system? Yes, you can do that by using containerization. How many operating systems are installed here? How many operating systems are installed here? Only one operating system, but I'm able to run 3 different applications which are developed by 3 different technologies, which are developed by using 3 different technologies. Are you guys able to follow this? Are you guys able to follow this? What is the difference that you have seen from virtualization to containerization? What is the difference you have seen from virtualization to containerization? In virtualization, we have 3 different operating systems. In the containerization, only one operating system which is going to run multiple applications as a containers. What are the advantages? containers are very small when compared with the VM. Resource utilization will be very good. As there is only one operating system, applications are systems will start very fast. Boot up process will be very fast. So to avoid the problems of the virtualization, containerization concept came into picture. Are you guys able to understand? To avoid the problems of virtualization, containerization came into picture. What is happening inside the containerization? Everything which is required. Now, here I have mentioned that, right? For my application, I have some softwares. For my application, I need some softwares. I need one operating system. For my application, I need one software. I need operating system. I need one operating system. I need one operating system for my application. I need one operating system for my application. Able to understand this? Inside the container, we can have a operating system. We can have the softwares which are required. We can have the configuration which is required. Whatever is required for our application, everything we can keep inside the container. Inside the container. Okay. Now let us see here. Let us see here. So here I need Java. I need Java 1.8 version. First, I need Linux operating system. I need Java 1.8. Okay. I need Tomcat 9. I need Tomcat 9. And I need MySQL 5.6. MySQL 5.6. Are you guys getting my point? I need Angular 12. Angular 12 I need. Linux, Java, Tomcat, MySQL, Angular. All these things are required for my application. This is the technology stack of my application. This is the technology stack of my application. Instead of installing this technology stack in every project, what I will do is by using all these softwares, I have packaged all these softwares. I'm packaging all these softwares. I will create one image. This is what my Java Spring Boot image. This is my Java image. That means this image contains all the things that are required, all the softwares which are required to run my application. Now I have these softwares. I'm using these components in my application. I am using these components in my application. Instead of installing these softwares in every computer, what I am going to do is I am going to package all these softwares as one image. What is the image means? Image means it is a package which contains the components or softwares which are required to run my application. Softwares are available and my application is also available. App code, app source code, everything, everything. My war file, I can say my war file, app war, app war file. Java project is developed as a war file, right? It is deploying as a war file, right? Linux operating system required. In that Linux, I need Java 1.8 version. I need Tomcat 9.0. I need MySQL 5.6. I need Angular 12, and I have a war file. Now, this is the war file of my application, which contains a code. In order to run this war file, all these softwares are required. Linux machine is required. Java 1.8 required. Tomcat 9.0 required. MySQL 5.6 required. Angular 12 required. These are the softwares and this is the operating system. I need these things in order to run my application. I need these things to run my application. So now, if I want to run this application in a computer, I need to set up everything. 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 Got my point? So what are the softwares? What are the components which are required for our application? What are the components? What are the softwares which are required for our application? We are going to create one image. This is called, we are going to build one image. We are going to build one image. Now, whenever the image is ready, whenever you run that image, it is going to create a box. It is going to create a box. That box is called as a container. Container. It is going to create a container. In container, application will run. In container, everything will be available to run application. Okay, whatever the softwares, what are the things, what are the dependents that are required for our application, we are going to package as one image. Whenever you run that image, it is going to start what container. In that container, it is going to install all the softwares and all the libraries, all the technologies, all which versions are required. Everything will be installed in the container, and our application is going to run like a container. Now, sir, once I have a image, can I run this image in multiple computers? Now, client told that I have 10 computers. Can you run my application in the 10 computers? Now, do I need to set up infrastructure, or I just need to run the image here? Can I run the image in multiple computers now? Do I need to set up the infrastructure? Our infrastructure setup is already available in the image. Infrastructure do I need to set up? Our infrastructure setup is available as part of image. Now earlier what we have done? I have client has given 5 computers. Earlier what we have done? Client given 5 computers. So you need to set up the infrastructure in all the 5 computers. It is going to take a lot of time. But now client told you to run your project in 100 computers. To run the project in 100 computers. Do I need to set up the infrastructure in the 100 computers, or I just need to run the image available for our project? Do I need to set up the infrastructure for all the 100 computers, or I need to just run the image? Java image is available. What is this image contains? What is this image contains? Operating system, softwares which are required, application code which is available, everything is packaged as an image. So you just to take the image, run image here, run image. You just run the image. You just run the image. You just run the image. You run the image. You run the image. When you run the image, what will happen? When you run the image, what will happen? That image is going to run as a container. Image will be running as a container. What is this container contains? This container will have everything which is required to run our application. Okay, to run this Java application, Linux is required, Java 1.8 version required, Tomcat 9.0 server required, MySQL 5.6 required, Angular 12 version required. This war file should be running. Everything is going to run as a container. Now tell me, this process is easy or this process is easy? Setting up the infrastructure manually is easy or running the image is easy? Setting up the infrastructure manually is easy, running the image is easy. Running the image is easy. This is called as containerization of our application. If you go for this approach, this is called setting up the application infrastructure manually. This is called as setting up the application infrastructure manually. Generally, DevOps people has to do this setup in order to run the application in the multiple computers. We discussed in the project batch, multiple environments will be available: dev environment, prod environment, QA environment, UAT environment. So multiple machines, multiple computers. In order to run the application in the multiple computers, infrastructure should be ready. Then only we can run the application, because our application is using multiple technologies, multiple frameworks, multiple languages, multiple libraries. So if all the setup is ready, dev stack is ready, then only we can run the application. It is very challenging thing to set up the infrastructure in the systems. Okay, to simplify infrastructure setup, which is required for our application, we are going for a concept called containerization concept. To simplify application deployment process in multiple computers, we are going for containerization concept. What is the meaning of containerization? You just note down, you just create, you just configure what are the things required to run your application. I need Linux, I need Java, I need Tomcat, I need MySQL, I need Angular, and this is the project war file. So you mention everything inside one file. What are the softwares are required? What is the configuration is required? Which version of the software is required to run the application? This is called one package. We are going to package all the things, whatever is required for us. You just mention that whatever is required to run the project. So by creating, by writing all the details in one file, this is just one file. In the file, I will write it. I need Linux, I need Java, I need Tomcat, I need MySQL, I need Angular. This is war file. Everything I'm going to write in one text file. I need Java, I need Tomcat, I need MySQL. Once we have this text file, we are going to build that text file. We are going to compile a Java program, right? Similarly, we are going to compile this file, then it is going to create one image. What is this image contains? This image contains all the configuration which is required for our application, all the infrastructure information which is required for our application. Once you have this image, you just run this image. Simple concept, guys. You know Java programs, right? You know Java programs. So here that Java file will be available. Then what you will do? You will compile this Java program. You will compile this Java program. Then what will happen? You will compile the Java program. It will create what? Dat class file. Whenever you run the dat class file, what will happen? JVM is going to start. Whenever you run the Java program, what will happen? JVM will start. What the JVM will do? Execute the program. What JVM will do? Execute the program. Once the JVM is executing the program, what will happen? Output will come. Output will come. This is Java application execution flow. You will write a Java program. You will write a Java program. You will run the Java, you will compile the Java program, which will give you a dot class file. When you run the Java program, it is going to launch the JVM, that JVM is going to run the program. It will provide the output in operating system. Similarly here, what I will do is infrastructure information, I will write one file, infrastructure details. What I'm going to do? Infrastructure details, I'm going to configure inside one text file. It is a normal text file. Infrastructure details, I'm going to configure in one file. Right now, what I will do? I will build that file. When I build that file, what will happen? One image will come. One image will come. I'm going to run that image. I'm going to run that image. When I run that image, what will happen? One container will run. One container is going to start. One container is going to start. Inside the container, application will run. App will run in container. App will run in the container. Now here we need to build the image, and here we need to run the image. That's it. That's it. Infrastructure details. Infrastructure details. Okay. This is your file. You just compare with Java programs. That's it. Okay. Java program you will write. You will compile that. That class file will come. That class file you will run. JVM will start. In the JVM program will execute, output will come. Now what I am doing, in order to run that Java programs, in order to run that Java program, I need softwares. I need one operating system. I need Java. I need Tomcat. I need MySQL. I need Angular. I need WAR file. Okay, so now in order to run this information in a computer, in order to run this project in a computer, I need to set up all this infrastructure. Setting up the infrastructure manually is difficult or easy? Setting up the infrastructure in the computer is easy or difficult? Setting up the infrastructure manually is easy or difficult? Setting up the infrastructure manually is easy or difficult? Difficult. So that's why what we are going to use, we are going to use a technique called containerization technique. We are going to use a technique called what? Containerization technique. Containerization means what? Whatever the components, whatever the infrastructure which is required for our application, we are going to package and we are going to package and we are going to run that. Containerization. What is that containerization? Docker is the containerization. Docker is the containerization platform. What is Docker? What is Docker? Sir, here containerization, whatever the softwares or images, whatever the softwares which are required for our application, I will configure those softwares in one file and I will build that file. Then I will get one image. When I run that image, container will start. This container will contain all the softwares which are required for my application. So we are going to use containerization concept to simplify deployment process of the application. Okay, I have created a project as a developer. I want to deploy my project in the client system. I need to set up the infrastructure in the client. In order to set up the infrastructure manually, I will use a container. Container will set up everything which is required to run my application. Are you guys able to follow this? What is Docker now? Docker is a containerization tool which will set up the infrastructure to run your application. That's it. We have spent almost 2 hours to understand what is the definition of the Docker. Now, can you understand what is Docker? Can you understand what is Docker? What the Docker? Why we are using Docker? In single statement, can you tell me why we are using Docker? Come on, guys. Docker is going to make our life easy. Easily, we can deploy the applications by using Docker. So if I use the Docker, do I need to set up the infrastructure? Does the DevOps people need to set up the infrastructure if we use the Docker? What you need to do? You just need to configure, you just need to tell what softwares are required to run your program. That's it. You just need to set up, you just need to mention what configuration is required in a file. Configuration as a file. That's it. Sir, I want to run my application, Java application, Java software required. To install the Java, I need minimum 15 to 20 minutes of time. I need to set up Tomcat, 30 minutes time. MySQL, 1 hour. Angular, 1 hour. So in Linux, I have to install 1 hour. So minimum to minimum 5 hours of time I need to set up this infrastructure to run the project. Yes or no? Being a 8 years experienced developer, I need minimum 4 to 5 hours to set up the infrastructure. I have 8 years experience, but in order to run this application, I have to spend 5 hours to set up the machine, to set up my computer to run. But if I go for this approach, if I go for this approach, 1 minute. What is that, guys? If I go for this approach, do I need to spend 5 hours to set up the environment? Do I need to set up the environment for 5 hours? How much time I need to run my application now if I have a Docker? 1 minute. 1 minute. Why 1 minute? Because Docker will take care of the infrastructure which is required for my project. If I want to run the Java application manually in my computer, which is having these things, I need 5 hours of time to set up my computer. My computer should have a Linux. My computer should have Java. My computer should have Tomcat, MySQL, Angular, and the project source code. If I have everything, then only I can run my application. So to set up these things, I need 3 to 4 hours of time. That is the problem facing by the developers and testers and DevOps engineers in the industry. This is the problem which is facing by developers, testers, DevOps engineers in the industry. So now tell me, Dockers will be used by only Java people? Dockers will be used by only Java? Or any technology specific project can be used with Docker? Why people are saying Docker is a DevOps tool? You know, in the company, who is responsible for deploying the project, guys? Now, developers completed the development, project committed to GitHub repository. DevOps people need to take the code from the GitHub. They need to package the code as a WAR file by using Maven, and they need to deploy the WAR file to the server. So that is a manual process. Now, if the DevOps persons are responsible to deploy the project into 10 computers, they have to set up the infrastructure in the 10 computers. Java, MySQL, Tomcat, Redis, Linux, everything. It is difficult for them. Now, in order to simplify the application deployment process, we are using Docker. So DevOps people, if we use the Docker in the project, DevOps engineers' job will be very, very easy because they are responsible to set up the infrastructure. If we have given the infrastructure as a file, do they need to set up that again, or they just need to run the image? Do they need to set up the infrastructure again? If I have a containerization like a Docker, do they need to set up that infrastructure, or they will just run my image? As a programmer, if you use the Docker, DevOps engineer job will become very easy. We will simplify the life of the DevOps engineer. Are you able to follow this? Why we are using Docker now? Generally, in order to run the application, infrastructure setup should be done in the computer. That is very difficult. That is very challenging. It is a time-taking process. It is error prone because version conflict may come. To avoid that problem, what we will do is we will take one text file. In the text file, we will write everything which is required for our project. In a text file, we will write everything which is required for a project. Then we will build that text file. It will create an image. We will run that image. That image will create a container. That container will set up everything which is required to run our application, and it will run our application. Now I have a file which contains the information what is required for me. I have started that file. I have compiled that file which created a image. Now I have a image. If I give the image to you, can you run the image now? If I give the image, hey, this is a Java image, you just run this image. Can you run that image within 1 minute? If you run that image, infrastructure will be ready within 1 minute because Docker will set up the infrastructure by using a container. That container will install the software. This container will install the Linux. This container will install Java. This container will install Tomcat. It will install MySQL. It will install Angular. Then it will run the project. Everything is ready. Just 1 minute. My system is ready to run the application. Now tomorrow, suppose assume that I am working in the project. My project is using all these softwares. You newly joined in the project. Do you need to set up the infrastructure? Do you need to set up the infrastructure? What do you need to do? What do you need to do, guys? You just take the image from the existing developer, you run the image. When you run the image, what will happen? In your computer, one container will create. That container will set up the infrastructure to run the application. Within 1 minute, you can start the project. Within 1 minute, you can start the project. Because container will take care of everything which is required to run your project. Now, here, guys, the infrastructure details we are writing, right? The infrastructure details we are writing, this is called as Docker file. What is this, guys? Whatever the infrastructure we need for our project, we are going to write here, right? That is called as Docker file. And here we are going to build the Docker file. Then it is going to create a Docker image. Docker image contains infrastructure details. Whenever you run this image, Docker container will start. This is the execution flow of the Docker. Docker is a containerization platform which is used to simplify deployment of your application. Now, whenever you are learning Java, people will tell you, you have to install the Java, you have to set the path for Java, you have to install the Tomcat, you have to change the port number, you have to install the database. Do I need to do these things manually from now? Hey, install the Java, set up the path for Java, install the Tomcat, change the port number, install the database, set up the things. Do I need to do all those things manually, or I will just use the Docker to perform the setup? I will use the Docker to perform the setup. So what is Docker? Docker is a containerization platform tool which is going to simplify the deployment process of your application. Docker is a container. That container will provide everything which is required to run your application. So you need to tell to Docker, hey Docker, I need these softwares. You will just mention the software details in the Docker file. By using the Docker file, we will create a Docker image. By using the Docker image, we will run the container. That container will run our application. Samjha what I'm trying to say? What is Docker? Why we are using Docker? Why Docker is having this much demand in the market? Now, do you understand? Now, do you understand what is Docker? Almost after 2 hours, you got the definition for what is Docker. Directly, if I explain this, can you understand the power of the Docker? I can tell you Docker definition within 5 minutes. Docker is a containerization platform which will provide the infrastructure to run the application. Within 5 minutes, I can close it. But will you get this much clarity? What is the problem if we don't use Docker? First, we have to understand the problem. Then we have to find out the solution. Samjha? Got it? Now let us see the definition of the Docker. Docker is a containerization platform. We are going to package everything, the infrastructure which is required for our application, we are going to package as a container, and we are going to run the container. This container we can run in any computer. This container we can run in any computer. Why? Because do I need to set up the softwares in the computer, or container will set up the softwares for the application? Do I need to set up the softwares for my application, or container will set up the softwares for my application? Container will set up the softwares for my application. Container will take care of the softwares which are required for my application. Now, can I run this container in 100 computers? Easily we can run it. You no need to do any setup because container will take care of the setup. Okay, now let us see the definition of the container and the Docker. Okay, now I will give the Docker image. I will ask my developers to run the Docker image. Working in my system, working in my system, working in my system. Do I really need to bother about what is the configuration of their system? What are the softwares available in their system? Do I need to concentrate on that? Do I need to consider that first of all? Whether you use Windows, whether you use Linux, whether you use a Mac, which version of Java you use, whether Java is available or not, I don't care. Why? You will run my image will provide a container, my container will install everything which is required for your project. So the project which is working in my system definitely will work in the other systems also. The project which is working in my system, definitely it will work in the other systems also, because container is common for all the computers. Container will take care of everything which is required for my project. Do I really need to bother about the software's installation now? Do I really need to bother about the infrastructure setup now? Do I really need to bother about infrastructure setup now? If the code is working in my computer, I will create an image for that. I will give to other developers. Other developers can just run my image. Then project will run in their system. Why? No need to do the configuration. Configuration will be taken care by the Docker container. Docker is a containerization platform. Let us see what is the Docker. Guys, don't worry. Practically, we will understand two examples also. I told you, one Java application I will run with the Docker. One Python application also I will run with the Docker. Guys, getting my point? What is Docker? Finally, let's see what is Docker. Guys, before going to uh, see the Docker with example, I want to give you one small announcement. Guys, from Monday, that means from tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. IST, we are starting a new batch for Spring Boot with microservices. Let's see a small AV for this Spring Boot with microservices batch, new batch. If you are interested, you can attend. If you have any friends, you can just inform them. We are starting a new batch for Spring Boot with microservices from tomorrow. Complete real-time training that we are going to provide for Spring Boot and microservices. A small AV for 2 minutes, then we will get started with the Docker. Course content you can download from our website. Zoom link also available in our website. Complete real-time oriented boot microservices classes are starting from tomorrow. I'm the trainer for that batch. It will be morning at 9:30 a.m. IST. Tomorrow is the first session. You can join for the demo tomorrow at 9:30. Free demo you can attend. Zoom link available in our website. Tomorrow is the demo. Yeah, this is the Zoom link. You can take the screenshot of that. In our website also you can find out the Zoom link. Please inform to your friends who are looking for learning Spring Boot with microservices. After attending Spring Boot with microservices in Ashok IT, you can keep 3 to 4 years experience as a microservices developer. That much level content we are going to understand. That level content we are going to understand. Complete real-time oriented. I'm working in the company. So how I'm developing the project with Boot microservices with the same concepts, with the same solutions, we are going to learn our course. Okay. I hope you like the presentation. Yeah, thank you. Right, let's get started. So we are trying to understand what is Docker. We are trying to understand what is Docker, right? Yeah. The people who are interested for the Spring Boot microservices, you can attend the demo session tomorrow, guys. Zoom link you can find in the website, ashokitech.com. There you can go to training schedules. You can see the Zoom link. The people who are attending in the Zoom, I'm giving the link for registration. You can register for the tomorrow's demo session. Tomorrow morning 9:30 a.m. demo will be available. Got it? Perfect. Very good. Now let's try to understand what is Docker now. So can anyone tell me what is Docker before I'm going to give my definition? Can you guys tell me what you understand from last 2 hours about the Docker? Can you guys tell me what is Docker now? Can you guys tell me what is Docker now? I want to see your response in the chat. People watching from YouTube, people who are watching from YouTube, people who are watching in Zoom, can you please tell me what is Docker now? Can you please tell me what is Docker now? Docker is a containerization platform which is used to simplify application deployment process. Docker is a containerization platform which is used to simplify application deployment process. So if you are going to use the Docker, can we easily deploy the application in multiple systems? Can we easily deploy the application in multiple systems? Do I really need to bother? Do we really need to bother about infrastructure setup for our application? Do we really need to bother about infrastructure setup of our application? Do we really need to bother about infrastructure setup of our application? Do we really need to bother about infrastructure of our application if you are using Docker? We don't need that. We don't need that because Docker is going to take care of everything which is required for our application. Docker is going to take care of everything which is required for our application. You got my point? You got my point, guys? Yeah. The people who are looking for new Spring Boot microservices batch, the link I have given in the chat box, you can enroll for the demo session tomorrow. You can enroll for the demo session tomorrow. Enroll now option is available. If you are interested to attend the demo, you can attend the demo session tomorrow. Yeah, got it. Good. Perfect. Let's start. What is the Docker? What is Docker? Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running applications. Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running applications. So if anybody asks you, what is Docker? If anybody asks you, what is Docker? Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running applications. So what is the meaning of packaging? It is going to keep everything which is required to run our application, deploying and running the applications. Docker enables you to separate your application from your infrastructure so you can deliver software quickly. So now, if I want to run my application, do I really need to bother about what infrastructure available in the computer? If I want to run the Docker in your system, do I really need to bother about what infrastructure available in your system? Not required. Why? Container will take care of it. Docker will take care of everything which is required to run our application. So if anybody asks you, what is the Docker? Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running applications. Docker enables you to separate your applications from your infrastructure so you can deliver software quickly. Now I want to deliver a project to the client. Client told that, hey Ashok, can you deploy my project into 100 computers by tomorrow morning? Can we do that? Client told me to deploy the project into 100 computers by tomorrow morning. Do I need to set up the infrastructure in the 100 computers? Not required. I can just run the Docker image. So the Docker container will start. That container will take care of everything which is required to run my application. That's it. That's it. Generally, if the Docker is not available, then kya hoga? I have to install all the softwares in the 100 computers. I need 1 month of time, but client wants by tomorrow. Client wants by tomorrow. If I want to set up manually in the 100 computers, I need minimum to minimum 1 month time. But if I use Docker, within fraction of seconds, I can package, I can deploy, and I can run my application irrespective of the machine that you are using. Whatever the computer you have, I don't care, because my container will take care of everything which is required for my application. My container will take care of everything which is required for my application. You got my point now? You got my point now? Right, right. Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running application. Docker enables you to separate your application from your infrastructure and you can deliver the project quickly. Docker packages software into standardized units called containers that have everything that software needs to run, including libraries, system tools, code, and runtime. So how the Docker is going to simplify the application deployment process? Docker is going to package everything into one container. That container will have everything which is required to run the project and it is going to run that. Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running the application. Docker enables you to separate your application from your infrastructure so you can deliver the software quickly. Docker packages software into standardized units called containers that have everything the software needs to run, including libraries, tools, softwares, everything. Okay, good. I hope you got the clarity on what is Docker, what is the definition of the Docker, and why we need to go for the Docker. I hope you got the clarity. I hope you got the clarity, right? By taking advantages of Docker's methodologies for shipping, testing, and deploying the code quickly, you can significantly reduce the delay between writing the code and running it in the production. So I have written the code, I want to run it in the client system. So if we need some time to set up the infrastructure in the client system. Now, if you have a Docker, I can reduce that time which is required to set up the environment because Docker is used to automate the infrastructure setup. Docker is used to automate the infrastructure setup. Come on, guys. Docker is a platform for packaging, deploying, and running the applications. If I use the Docker in my project, it is going to automate the infrastructure setup in any computer by using a concept called container. So you can reduce the time which is required to set up the infrastructure to run a project. Developer's life is getting simplified. Tester's life is getting simplified because if Docker is not available, if I am going for manual process, I have done the setup in computer one, manual setup. Tester should test the project in the first computer. I have done the setup in the second computer because manually we have done, there is a chance of doing some mistakes. Tester has to do the setup, tester has to test here, tester has to test here, tester has to test here. So testers, more number of testers are required to test our application if you do the setup manually. It is difficult for the programmer because there is a chance of getting environmental issues. It is difficult for the tester because in every computer they have to test it. It is difficult for the DevOps people because they have to set up the infrastructure in every computer. So developers, testers, DevOps people are going to struggle with the infrastructure setup manual process. If we remove the manual process, if I use the Docker, whatever the project which is working in one computer will definitely work in the other computer also. You no need to test it because Docker is already proven solution in the market. You don't need to test whether Docker working or not. Docker will work perfectly, 100%. Practically, it is tested. It is proven in the market. So if you deploy your application by using Docker in Windows machine, if I deploy in the Linux, do I need to test it in the Linux? No problem. If you test in the Windows, same application will work exactly in the Linux also. You no need to test it because Docker is guaranteeing that. Docker will guarantee that. Docker will guarantee that. Got it? Can you read the 4 points again? We'll start the practicals now. Spring Boot application I will do first, then I will go with the Python. Two applications I'm going to deploy by using Docker practically, and I will show you that. Come on. So everybody confident about the Docker? Why industry is using Docker nowadays? So to simplify the deployment process, to simplify the deployment process of the applications, people are using Docker, guys. Docker is used to Build, ship, and run. That's it. You create the project, you package it as an image, you run the image as a container, then application will run. Perfect. Docker architecture. Sir, you told so many things about Docker from last 2 hours. Docker is that, Docker is this. How it is going to work now? What is Docker architecture? What is Docker architecture? Now let us see. First, we are going to start with the Docker file. We are going to start with the Docker file. In the Docker file, we need to write what is required for us, what softwares are required, which version of the software is required. We need to set up that in the Docker file. We need to set up that in the Docker file. Are you able to follow this? So if you want to use the Docker in your project, first you need to write the Docker file. What will be there in the Docker file? Infrastructure information. I need Java, I need Maven, I need Tomcat, I need MySQL. So whatever the infrastructure we need for our project, we need to mention that information inside the Docker file. It is a text file. Docker file is a text file. Okay. Now we are going to build that Docker file. Whenever you build the Docker file, it is going to give you Docker image. First, we are going to create a Docker file. That Docker file contains the infrastructure information. Then we are going to build that file. Then we will get a Docker image. Whenever you run that image, Docker container will come. Whenever you run that image, Docker container will come. That container will run your application with all the infrastructure required for the application. Java, MySQL, Linux operating system, database, tools, libraries, everything, whatever is required for you will be created by the container. It will set up the environment. It will run your application. That's it. That's it. You understand? You understand the Docker architecture? Docker file, Docker image, Docker container. Now, whatever the project I have created to run in your computer, I have run in the project, I have a project in my system. In order to run the project in your system, what you need from me? Do you need to set up infrastructure or you just need my Docker image? You just need my Docker image. You just need my Docker image. If you have my Docker image, you can do the things on your own. Now, look at this Docker architecture. Look at this Docker architecture. You got it now? You got my point now? What you need to run the application easily? What you need to run the application easily, guys? Docker image. What will be there in the Docker image? What will be there in the Docker image? Come on. What will be there in the Docker image? Infrastructure details. Docker image contains what? Infrastructure details. Docker image contains what? Infrastructure details. Got it. Docker image contains infrastructure details. Okay. Now let's get started with the Docker installation, guys. Let's get started with the Docker installation. So in order to work with the Docker, we need to working with Docker now. Working with Docker practicals, guys. Theoretically, we understand. We felt Docker is very great. Let's understand practically. Let us deploy. Let us run one application by using Docker. Then you will understand the power of the Docker. All right. Finally, we are understanding the practicals of the Docker. Download and install. Download and install Docker. Download and install Docker in your machine. Okay. Download and install Docker in your machine based on your operating system. If you are using Windows, then Windows Docker you have to install. If you are using Linux, there is a separate process. If you are using Mac, there is a separate process. Download and install Docker in your machine based on your operating system. Sir, where to download the Docker? There is a beautiful website available for the Docker. Okay. There is a beautiful website available for the Docker Hub. What is that, guys? Docker Hub is available. Docker Hub. You can create a account in the Docker Hub. Right now, Docker Hub is there. I have created my account, guys. Now let me log out from here. So you go to hub.docker.com. You go to hub.docker.com. I'm giving the URL in the chat box. Hub.docker.com. There is an option to sign up. You can sign up into Docker Hub. Now here, I have already account in the Docker Hub. I'm just logging into my Docker Hub account. I'm logging into Docker Hub account. Sign in. Good. You can also create the account and you can also sign in into Docker Hub. Now go to the home page of the Docker Hub. There will be an option to download Docker software. There will be an option to download Docker software. Hub.docker.com, or simply you can type download Docker. Download Docker. Docker desktop for Mac and Windows. Now, so here there is the option download for Windows. So if you are using Mac, you can click on the Mac link. If you are using Linux, click on the Linux link. Now, my operating system is Windows, so I am going to click on this button, download for Windows. When I click on this, download for Windows, it is going to download a Docker software, which is a Docker desktop for Windows operating system. I will stop it because I have already downloaded that software. It is available in my softwares folder. You can see Docker for Windows. Docker desktop installer.exe. Docker desktop installer.exe sub file is available. Docker exe file is available whenever I have downloaded that file. Once this exe file is available, you just need to install the software. Double click, next, finish. That's it. That is how you need to install the Docker. Once the Docker is installed, you can see one icon in the desktop. One icon you can see on the desktop. You see that? Can you see the Docker icon? Docker desktop. Once you have installed that Docker software, a icon shortcut will be created in the desktop. If you just double click on that, then Docker engine will start. Now you see here, my Docker desktop is ready. You see my Docker is running. You need to install the Docker and you need to run the Docker engine. Download and install Docker in your machine based on your operating system. Run the Docker engine. Run the Docker engine. How to run the Docker engine? You just double click on that file which is downloaded and it will be installed. Once it is installed, you just double click on this, then Docker engine will start. Docker engine will start. Docker desktop. If you see, engine is running. My Docker engine is running. Now, once the Docker engine is started, you can verify whether the Docker is running or not. Now see here, I'm going for Docker-version. I can go for Docker-version. Can you see? It is displaying the version of the Docker or not? Docker version. Now you can see Docker, it is displaying. Docker-version is not working. I think Docker-version or Docker version directly. We'll try this. Yeah, Docker-version. What is happening? It is displaying which version of the Docker I'm using in my computer. So which version of the Docker is installed in my computer? Docker version 20.10.10. This is the build number of the Docker. So Docker is running in my system. So there is a command called Docker help. Docker help command is going to display all the commands that we are going to use very frequently with the Docker. Docker help is displaying all the commands that we are going to use with the Docker. Now you can use one more command called Docker info. Guys, these commands we can execute once the Docker is installed in our system. Now, am I able to see the information of the Docker, build pack, Docker scan, servers, containers, 10 containers, running 2 containers, all the Docker information is displaying in my computer. The Docker which is installed in my computer, the Docker information I'm able to see. So what are the commands I have executed? Docker -version, which version of the Docker we are using, and Docker help. It will give you the documentation of the Docker, and you can go for Docker info. So the information of the Docker running in my computer, it is displaying that information. Okay, very good. Now here if you see, I have already created the account in the Docker Hub. You see, I have already created account in the Docker Hub. I have a Docker ID and I have my password also. I have created a account in the Docker Hub. Now, in order to connect to our Docker Hub, there is a command called login, Docker login. It will ask you to enter your username and password. So you created a Docker account, right? It is going to ask you the details of that. Already I have logged in, so it is not going to ask me again. It is not going to ask me again. Login success, because already my credentials are available in the Docker CLI. First time when you try to log in, it will ask you to enter your username and password. What username password you have to enter? Whenever you have created the Docker account, Docker Hub account, whenever you have created the Docker Hub account, you need to provide those details in order to connect into Docker CLI. Are you guys clear with this? Are you guys clear with this one? Okay, I'm able to see my the Docker installation working, Docker version I'm able to see, Docker help, Docker information. I'm able to connect it to the Docker account also, Docker Hub account also by using Docker login. Now we need to understand some Docker commands, guys. We need to understand some Docker commands. What are the Docker commands? Let us see. Docker -v, Docker version it will display, Docker info, Docker help, Docker login, Docker images, Docker PS, Docker pull, Docker run, Docker build, Docker tag, Docker push, Docker RMI. Like this, there are several commands available in the Docker. By using those commands, we can perform operations. By using those commands, we can perform operations. Okay, let me do it from beginning, guys. Let's close this. Let me show you. Let me show you one application. Okay, guys, here I have one application which is developed by using Spring Boot, guys. I have one application which is developed by using Spring Boot, and I have one application which is developed by using Python. Two different applications are there developed by using two different technologies. Now I want to run these applications. Now I want to run these applications. So what we will do in order to run the applications, we are going to create a Docker file. We are going to create a Docker file. The people who are not from Java, you don't worry about it, guys. So it is a Spring Boot application which is developed by using Java. Now I want to run my application. Okay. In order to run my application, I have created one Docker file, as I mentioned. So to run your application by using Docker, we need to create a Docker file. Now, Java applications will run as a jar file. What I am telling to this one, this is my Docker file, which contains infrastructure details of my application. This is my Spring Boot application. This is Spring Boot application I want to start by using a jar file. Spring Boot application will run from the main method, right? Spring Boot application will run from the main method. That main method is available in a start class. That start class we are packaging as a jar file. From Java, 8JDK Alpine. 8JDK Alpine is the flavor of the Java which we can install in the Linux operating system. 8JDK Alpine is the flavor of the Java which we can install in the Linux operating system. And I'm telling to this Docker, hey Docker, for my project one jar file will be available in the target folder. You copy this jar from this target folder to Linux user app folder, because I want to run my Java application in the Linux computer by using Docker. Now, so here first I'm telling, hey Docker, please install Java 8 JDK Alpine flavor. Java 8 version you install in the Linux. Once you have installed the Linux, you copy the jar from my target folder to user app directory. Then set working directory as a user app. That means you take the jar, you keep into this folder, you go to that folder, you execute this command. That's it. Once the jar is executed, my Java application will start. That's it. So this is the infrastructure information I am configuring in the Docker file. Now, once I have this Docker file, let me go to the project. Let me go to the top project, go to CMD, open the CLI of the Docker. Now, can you see Docker info? Docker, are you able to run the Docker? Yes, I'm able to run the Docker. Yeah. Now, Docker file is available or not? Guys, concentrate carefully. Next 15 minutes, very important, because we are going to run the project by using Docker. Now, for my project, can you see the Docker file is available? Docker file I have created manually, guys. It will not come automatically. We have to create the Docker file. That is what I told you. When I'm explaining you Docker architecture, I told you we have to start from the Docker file. You have to write it. You should know how to write the Docker file. Once you write the Docker file, from the Docker file, we can create the Docker image. From the Docker file, we can create the Docker image. Now, these commands also I have given as a document. I'm going to give you these commands also documents, right? Docker, this document I will share you in the Telegram, guys. Docker commands. Docker commands are available here. Okay, I'm going to share you this document. Docker commands. Okay, running Docker images. Running Docker images. Okay, the Docker file. For Spring Boot application, what is the Docker file? For Python application, what is the Docker file? I am giving this document. Docker workshop for complete beginners. That is today's document. I will share this document in the Telegram once the class is completed. Got it? Now, here if you observe, for my Spring Boot application, I have a Docker file. Okay, from this Docker file, I want to create a Docker image. So from this Docker file, I want to create a Docker image. In order to create the Docker image, now you see, I am giving the code in the GitHub, guys. I'm going to give you the code in the GitHub. Once you have cloned the GitHub project, then go to the command prompt from the location of the project. I'm going to the location of the project. This is my Spring Boot REST app. I opened my command prompt from the Spring Boot REST app. So this is my Spring Boot project. I will give you this project. Don't worry. Just wait. I want to show you how to run the project first with the Docker. Then I will give you all the information. This is my project, which I have developed. It is a simple Spring Boot REST API, which I want to run with the Docker. Docker file is available. Now, from this Docker file, what we need to do? We need to create an image. We need to create a Docker image. How to create a Docker image? Docker space build space -t space image name space dot. So this is the command that we need to use to create a image of the Docker by using Docker file. So I have a Docker, I have a Spring Boot project. In that Spring Boot project, I created a Docker file. From that Docker file, I want to create a Docker image. To create the Docker image, we need to execute one command. What is that command? Docker build space -t space name of the image space dot. Now let me create the Docker image for you. Let me create the Docker image for you. Come on, guys. Can I create a Docker image? What is that? Docker build -t image name. What is the image name? Spring Boot application. Java Spring Boot app space dot. Java -sb app is the name of my image. Dot represents Docker file location. I want to create a Docker image. In order to create the Docker image, Docker file is required. Where is the Docker file? Docker file is available in the current folder. That's why I'm giving as a dot. See the command once again, what I'm going to type. Docker space build space -t space name of the image Java Spring Boot app space dot. Don't worry, guys, you no need to by heart because I'm going to share the document. Detailed document I have prepared today. I will share you this document. Right. Now, first you need to take the Spring Boot application, which is available in my Git repository. You need to open a command prompt from the location where the Docker file is available. Then you need to build the Docker image from the Docker file. To create the Docker image from the Docker file, the command docker space build space -t space name of the image. You can give any name, Java space SB space app space dot. That dot represents the Docker file. Click on enter. It is creating a Docker image from the Docker file. The Docker file contains the infrastructure information. Yeah, it is creating a Docker image. So my Docker image created or not? From the Docker file, Docker image got created. Can you check the images created or not? Docker images. Execute this command, which will tell you what are the images which are available. In my system, in my Docker, these are the images available. In my system, these are the images available. What is our image name? Java space -sb -app. That is name of the image. Now come to this diagram. Docker file is there. I have executed Docker build command. When I have executed build command, what happened? Docker image created. How to check whether Docker image created or not? How to check whether Docker image created or not? Docker images. It will give you all the images which are available. It is giving all the images which are available. Okay, sir, once the image is available, what is the next step? Can you see in the here? What is the next step once the image is available? I need to run it. What is the command to run the image now? What is the command to run the image now? Docker run -p port number and image name. Now let me show you how to run the Docker image. Docker run space -p 9090 space 9090 space Java SB app. This is the command which I'm going to use run my Docker image. First, I have taken a Docker file. From the Docker file, I have created the Docker image. Now I am trying to run the Docker image. Now tell me, Docker container is going to start. The Docker container is running in my Windows operating system, or it is going to run in the Linux operating system. Is it going to run in the Windows or it is in the running in the Linux? Linux. Docker container is going to run as a Linux machine. Okay. In that Linux machine, my application port number is 9090. Now that container port number, I need to map with my main operating system port number. That's why I'm giving -p 9090:9090. This is the actual port number of the Tomcat, which is running the Spring Boot application. That port number I am mapping with my Windows port number. And this is name of the image. This is the command which is used to run the Docker image. Guys, understand carefully. First, we have a Docker file. From the Docker file, I have created a Docker image. Now I am running the Docker image. How to create the Docker image? Build command. How to run the Docker image? Run command. Okay, run it. Run it, guys. Now you see Spring Boot application is going to start. Now tell me, do I need to set up Java, Spring, everything, Tomcat and all? Everything will be taken care by Docker. Now let's run. The application is started. Let's access. Welcome REST controller executed. Started the Spring Boot application. Now let's go to our browser and let's access that. Let's access that application. Localhost : running on 9090/welcome/Ashok. That is the URL of my REST API. Ashok, welcome to Ashok IT. Am I able to run my Spring Boot application inside the Docker? Am I able to run my Spring Boot application inside the Docker? What I have done now? What I have done? Docker file I have created for my boot application. From the Docker file, I have created a Docker image. The Docker image I am running, then the application running as a container. This is for Spring Boot project. Now, sir, similarly, we are having one Python application. Python Flask application is available. So I have taken a Python project from the internet. I also don't know Python. Because I'm a Java developer. Okay, this Python application is there. Can you help me how to run this Python application by using Docker? I have given the Docker file also for you. You no need to worry about it. I have given a Docker file also for you. You no need to worry about it. Okay. Now I have a Python project in my system. Python is not available. So you see my computer. Do I have Python or not? Now, first let me show you the softwares which are installed in my computer programs. Where is the program? Now, can you see in my system anywhere Python is installed? Can you see in my system Python is installed? P. I'm typing P. Python is installed in my computer or Python is not installed in my computer? I'm using Windows operating system. Python is available in my computer. Let me sort by name. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Power twice, put T available. Do I have Python in my computer? I don't have a Python. Now I want to run Python application. So in order to run a Python application, do I need to set up the Python software in my system, or Docker will set up the Python for my system? Do I need to set up the Python for my system, or Docker will set up the Python for my system? Docker will set up. I don't have a Python in my computer, but I want to run the Python application. Okay. Now, in order to run the Python application, for the Python application, I have taken a Docker file. Open this Docker file. Yeah, or else you can see in the material. I have given Docker file. Can you see the Docker? Can you see the Docker file here? From Python 3.6. I'm telling to Docker, hey Docker, install Python software 3.6 version. Okay, copy that file, whatever the files are available in this my directory, current directory dot, copy to app folder in the Linux, app directory in the Linux. Then you make that working directory as a app. Run pip install requirements.txt. I'm telling to install requirements.txt, read the requirements.txt, run pip install -r requirements.txt. In the requirements.txt, what is available? In the requirements.txt, I'm telling Flask. Python Flask is one framework. In the Java, how we have a Spring framework, in the Python, there is a Flask framework. I'm telling to Docker to install Python Flask framework. Okay. Once it is done, the entry point is the Python command app.py. App.py is a file Python program. Java programs will have .java extension. Python programs will have .py extension. Now see .py, app.py. App.py is having a REST controller. App.root/hello return welcome to Ashok IT Flask app running inside Docker. You see here, this is how a REST controller will be developed by using Python Flask. In the normal Java, @REST controller, get mapping annotation, we will do it. Java REST controller. So you can see our Java REST controller. Here I have created a Java REST controller which I have executed now. ashokit.rest. Go to welcome REST controller.java, which is going to give the welcome message. That is Java Spring Boot REST controller. We have started that project by using Docker. Now I'm showing you Python REST controller, which is using Flask framework. I don't know what is Python. I don't know what is Flask. In my computer, Python is not installed. In my computer, Flask is also not installed. Same situation for the DevOps engineers. DevOps engineers don't know what is Java, what is Python, what is .NET. Their duty is set up the infrastructure, run the application. If I use Docker, does the DevOps engineer need to set up? Not required. Now see here, I will run the Python without having any knowledge on the Python. I'm going to run the Python application in my computer. With I don't know Python, my system also doesn't have the Python softwares. Okay, now let's go to command prompt. Now I have a Docker file. Can you tell me how to create a Docker image now? Can you tell me how to create a Docker image now? Come on, guys. Tell me how to create a Docker image now. Docker build, Docker build space -t space image name. What is that? Python Flask app space dot. Docker build space -t space Python Flask app dot. Dot represents Docker file. Enter. Enter. Okay. It is creating a Docker file. It is creating a Docker image for my Python project by using Docker file. Docker is creating a Docker image based on the Docker file. Python Flask app is the name of the image that I have given, guys. You can give any name for the image. You can give any name for the image. Now the Docker is reading the Docker file and it is creating the Docker image to run my Python application. Okay, now it is created. How to check the images which are created? Docker images. Docker images. Now can you see Python Flask app image created 15 seconds ago? Can you see the Docker image created for the Python? Come on. Docker image created or not? Yes. So do you know how to run this Docker image now? Do you know how to run this Docker image? Yeah. Can you tell me the command for running that? Can you tell me the command for running that? Docker. What is the command to run the Docker image? Docker. What is the command, guys? I'm waiting for you to give the command. Docker run -p. Docker run -p space port number mapping space name of the image. Got it? Python Flask app is the name of my image. Python Flask app is the name of my image. Docker run -p 5000 colon 5000. By default, Python application will run with the 5000 port number. I have configured that port number in the Docker file. Run the server with the port number as a 5000. Port 5000 is the port number I am using for the running the Python application. Mapping that 5000 to the 5000 space Python Flask app. That is the name of the image. Docker space run space -p space port number mapping space image name. Image name. Now application is running. Let me go and access the Python application now. Localhost colon 5000. Localhost colon 5000. Welcome to Ashok IT Flask app running inside the Docker. Am I able to access Python REST API using Flask? Do I have the setup in my system? Or I'm able to run that directly? Python is not there in my computer. Flask is not there in my computer, but I'm able to run it in my computer. Who has done the setup for my system now? Who has provided that setup for me? Docker provided that setup. Now tell me, if you join in the company as a DevOps engineer, do you need to set up all this infrastructure in the computer? Or Docker will set up it? Docker will set up it. Docker will set up it. The only thing that you need to know, how to write the Docker file. How to write the Docker file. Okay. Now, let me tell you some commands of the Docker. Okay. First one, Docker. First, if you install the Docker, you can see Docker version and you can see Docker info. You can see Docker help. You can see Docker images and you can see Docker build -t space image name space dot and Docker run -p host OS IP host OS port colon app port. App port we are mapping to our port and we are going to specify image name. Docker version, Docker info, Docker help, Docker images, Docker build, Docker run. Suppose if you want to delete one image, Docker RMI image name, you can remove one Docker image. Docker version, it will give you which version of the Docker you are using. Docker info will give information about the Docker. Docker help commands. Docker images, what are the images which are created in the Docker for your account, in your account? What are the Docker images are available? You can use those Docker images. Docker build -t image name space dot, which is used to create the Docker image. How to run that image? Here, app port number, Tomcat server application is running on the port number 8080. I want to bind that port number to my Windows port number. So Windows host OS nothing but my Windows OS. App port means my project is running. Image name, which is used to run. If you want to delete any image, then you can go for Docker RMI space image name. That image can be removed from the Docker. Image can be removed from the Docker. I have shown you how to Dockerize Spring Boot application and how to Dockerize Python Flask application. This is what about a Docker. And one more thing, sir, can I save the Docker images in a repository? Yes. Can I save the Docker images in a repository? Yes, you can do that, guys. Here we have created a Docker hub, right? You have created a Docker hub. Now in this Docker hub, you can create the images also. I have created my Docker hub. Can you guys see this URL? Are you able to access my Docker image or not? It is my Docker hub public account. Can you access that URL? All of you. Can you access that URL from the browser? Can you access that URL from the browser? Can you see my image, my Docker image there? I have stored the Docker image in the public. Anybody can access my image. Okay. Now I have stored my Docker image into my Docker Hub account, central repository. How to store the images to our Docker Hub account? I have given the commands for that also. Now, once you are able to run this Docker application, you can store the Docker images also. Into our central repository. Now, see here, Docker tag, Spring Boot REST API is my image name. Ashok IT is my username. Repository name I am keeping as a Spring Boot REST API latest. So this is one command we need to execute. To tag the image to the repository. Then push the Docker image to Docker Hub. In order to push the Docker image to Docker Hub, then Docker push Ashok IT image name. So I have pushed my image to Docker Hub account by using these commands. Last two commands you can see. I have created a Docker image. Can I give the Docker image to my team members? Can they directly use my image now? Everybody no need to set up because I'm a tech lead for my project. So I will write the Docker file with all the infrastructure. I will push the Docker image to my Docker Hub. Everybody need to write that or they can use my image. Everybody need to write that, or they can use my image. They can use my image. How to use my image now? How can you use my image now? If you have Docker installed, you can just execute this command. Docker pull space Ashok IT slash Spring Boot REST API. This is my Docker image available in my Docker Hub account. If you have this URL, you can execute this command. You can execute this command. Docker space pull space. This is my user ID for my Docker account. This is my image name. Now it is going to pull the Docker image for you. It is going to pull the Docker image for you. Now, for example, let me show you the Docker images. Now, I want to pull one image called Ubuntu. I want a Linux computer. Guys, I want a Linux machine. Do I have the Linux operating system in my computer? I don't have it. I want to take the Linux from Docker. I want to take the Linux from the Docker. So how to pull the Linux from the Docker? How to pull Linux by using Docker? Now see here, I'm opening a command prompt. 1 second, let me open with the big font. I'm opening a command prompt. Clear Docker info, which is displaying the information of the Docker. Now I want a computer with a Linux operating system. Do I need to download the Linux and I need to install the Linux? Do I need to download the Linux OS and install in my computer? Or I can ask Docker to give me the Linux? Can I ask the Docker to give me the Linux? What the Docker people has done is, Linux is very frequently used operating system. They created one image called Ubuntu image. Ubuntu is one of the distribution of the Linux operating system. Ubuntu is one of the distribution of the Linux operating system. Now, Docker Ubuntu. Docker pull Ubuntu. What is that, guys? Docker pull Ubuntu. What is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is the name of the image of the Docker. Pull is the command. Docker pull Ubuntu, which is going to pull Ubuntu image. That is a Linux image. A computer with a Linux operating system I am getting with one command. Now, am I able to use that Linux? Yeah. Now, Docker run Ubuntu. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? Am I able to take the Ubuntu? Am I able to take the Ubuntu? Yes, Ubuntu image, I got it. Now see here, Ubuntu. I have a Ubuntu image. I have a Ubuntu image. Now, what happened to this? Yeah, Ubuntu image is available now. So simply I can go to this Ubuntu image and I can run this Ubuntu. Now simply once again, let me do this. Docker run Ubuntu. I'm running a Linux machine by using Docker image. Docker Ubuntu. Ubuntu is available. Ubuntu is available. Run it. Run. Ubuntu is running. Ubuntu is running. Start this. Now open CLI. Open CLI. Now can you see a Linux machine is started for me. A Linux machine is started for me. How many of you know Linux here? How many of you know Linux here? I want to check what is my present working directory. Slash who am I? Root user. Who am I? Root user. I want to create one file, touch demo.java. Touch demo.java. ls-l. Can you see demo.java file is created? I got one Linux machine, guys. I got one Linux machine. Generally, how much time you need to set up a computer with Linux? Minimum 1 hour. But here, 1 minute. Infrastructure, I got a computer with Linux operating system with one command. Docker pull Ubuntu. That's it. That Docker gave me a computer with Ubuntu operating system. Ubuntu is a Linux flavor. Can you see? Can I say this is my Linux machine, Linux folder structure? There are some people who know the Linux here. Can you say this is my Linux folder structure or not? Yes or no? Who am I? Who am I? I'm a root user. Where I am available? I'm available inside slash ls-l. What are the files? List the files available. List the files available. Demo.java. Demo.java file is available. User bin. User bin. Temp directory. User where. This is the folder structure. Go to home directory. cd space home. cd space home. Present working directory. I navigated to home directory. I navigated to home directory. Let me create the files. Let me write cat, hello, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Right? We are able to write the data to the files by using cat command. You can see the data in the file. This is my Linux. This is my Linux machine. How I got this Linux machine? With Docker. With Docker. Docker gave me the Linux machine. My images are running here. Let's stop it. Let's stop this Ubuntu image. Remove this. Okay. Understand how can you pull the images which are already available in the Docker? Just Docker pull command. You just need to go for a Docker pull command. This is the image of Ashok IT. Ashok IT Docker account having one image. The people who want to run a simple Spring Boot application by using Docker, they no need to create the project. They can just take my image. I have created an image. I'm giving you this image. Now, if you after installing the Docker in your system, if you execute this command, you will get my image. You can just run my image. You can just get my image and you can run my image. Okay, you see here, Couchbase image available, PostgreSQL image available, Nginx image, Ubuntu. This is the image that I have taken. Docker Ubuntu image. What is the command? Docker pull Ubuntu. So did I created this image or Docker people created this image for us? Docker people created this image. Whenever you want to learn the Linux, if you want to learn the Linux for practice, you no need to install the Linux. You just to take this Docker image and run it. You will get the Docker Ubuntu. Ubuntu, you will get it. Official images. Docker image. Alpine I want. Redis cache. Nginx. Python. Do you need to install the Python in your system? Or you can execute directly Docker pull Python. Docker pull Python. Then what will happen? You will get a Python image. So these all are the official images are available in the Docker. Python, Node.js image, HTTPD image, Redis image, Bougie image, MongoDB, MySQL, MariaDB, OpenJDK, Golang, Docker. Oh, Docker is also available as a image. Docker pull Docker. Try this. What is a Docker pull Docker? It is getting the Docker image, right? So now do you understand how to share the images with others? By pushing our images in the in the Docker hub. You can store the images to the Docker hub. You can share your images to others also. They can use your images. Okay. They can use your images. By using Docker registry, we can share the images. Hello world image is available. Registry, MongoDB, OpenJDK, Maria, Docker, console, RabbitMQ, Ruby, WordPress. Oh my God. There are so many images are available. Elasticsearch, Debian. Debian is another flavor of the Linux. Debian is another flavor of the Linux. If you want to work with PHP image available. Tomcat, CentOS, Amazon Linux, Maven, Eclipse, Bash, Vault, Adminer, Ghost, Caddy, Kong, Cassandra, Gradle, Neo4j, Perl programming, Logstash, Java image also available. Docker pull OpenJDK. You will get the OpenJDK. You will get the OpenJDK. Status downloaded new image for the Docker. You got it. How to get the Docker images now? Pull command you can use it. Pull command you can use it to work with this Docker. Are you guys able to understand? Are you guys able to understand what is Docker and how to work with Docker? Docker commands. Yeah, everything I have documented, guys. I will share this document, and the code I have kept in the Git repository. I will share the code file also. You can just take my image and you can run my image so that you can understand it. You can just take my image and you can run my image. You can take my image and you can run my image. So I hope you got the clarity on what is Docker. I hope I have given you very good information related to Docker. Do you like it? Do you like it? Yes or no? Guys, so you have attended 3 hours of workshop. Can you please provide me your feedback about this Docker workshop? Anything need to be changed? Yeah, you can type in the chat boxes. Good. I hope you have enjoyed the workshop content, the commands that I have executed, the material that I have, the commands that I have executed, the materials that I have. Everything I will share with you. Everything I will share with you in Telegram group. Everything I'm going to share with you in the Telegram group, Ashok IT Telegram group. Ashok IT Telegram group. Right? I will share everything with you in the Telegram group. Yeah, I have given the link in the chat box for that. Good. Next week I will come up with one more workshop. So we will see. Next week, most probably we will see how to deploy Spring Boot application to AWS. How to deploy the boot application to AWS cloud, that we will see in the coming week. Okay, every Sunday we are conducting a workshop. Last 2 Sundays, security workshop we conducted. Today we have seen Docker. So next week we will see how to deploy Spring Boot application into Amazon Web Services, AWS cloud. Okay, so every Sunday we'll conduct a free workshop for you people to uh, improve your skill set. To improve your skill set. Got it? Yeah, I have given the link in the chat box. Could you please access that? People who are watching from YouTube, please subscribe to our channel for upcoming videos and please like the video. Thanks for joining. I will provide you the details in the Telegram group, guys. You can join with us in the Telegram, Ashok IT Telegram group. Open your Telegram app, search for @Ashok IT official, join in that. So now in another 1 hour, I will provide this class notes, video and commands, source code of the applications I have used in the Telegram group. Got it? So Ashok IT, @Ashok IT official is the Telegram name. Open Telegram app, search for @Ashok IT official. You will be able to see our Ashok IT channel. In this channel, I will provide the details about our Docker workshop, and every weekend free workshop will be available. The weekend workshops information, materials, interview questions, job openings, we are going to post in the Telegram group. Our students are available in the Ashok IT Telegram group. Please join with us in this Telegram. Okay, so tomorrow we have new batch for Spring Boot microservices. You can find the Zoom details in our website. You can find the Zoom details in our website. Tomorrow morning 9:30, Spring Boot microservices course is going to start. I'm the trainer for that. Okay. Thank you, guys.